The sun was going down and the desert highway stretched for miles empty and silent. The heat from the day still shimmered on the road, and only the soft wind whispered across the sand. It was one of those forgotten places, far from cities, far from help, far from hope. In the middle of this nowhere, a small, dusty car stood still on the side of the road. The hood was open, smoke rising gently. A young woman leaned against the car, her hand resting on her swollen belly. She was about 8 months pregnant. Her name was Sarah. Her face was pale, eyes tired, lips cracked. She hadn't had water in hours, and her phone had died long ago. She looked at the horizon. No cars, no signal, no people. She whispered to her unborn child, "Hang in there, baby, just a little longer." She had tried to fix the car, even kicked the tire once out of frustration. But it didn't help. She had left the city because her partner left her, and she couldn't afford the rent anymore. She thought her aunt in Nevada would help. She thought she could make it there before the baby came. She was wrong. Then came the sound. Low at first, then growing louder. An engine. A motorcycle. She stood up straight, blinking against the setting sun. Her heart pounded. Someone was coming. The motorcycle stopped near her. The rider took off his helmet, revealing messy black hair and a gentle, familiar face. It was Keanu Reeves. She didn't recognize him at first, not because she didn't know who he was, but because he didn't act like someone famous. He just smiled kindly and said, "You okay?" Sarah opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She was overwhelmed. Finally, she whispered, "My car broke down. My phone died. I've been here all day." Keanu looked at the engine, then at her belly. Concern filled his face. "How far along are you?" 33 weeks, she said softly. "But I've had some pain today. Maybe it's nothing. I can't walk anywhere." He didn't hesitate. He gave her his bottle of water, helped her sit on the shaded side of the car, and then opened a small pouch from his backpack. He had granola bars, more water, and a portable charger. "We'll figure this out," he said gently. "But first, you need to eat something." Sarah took a bite of the bar. It tasted like heaven. As the stars began to appear in the sky, Keanu worked on the car. He had learned a bit about engines over the years thanks to his love for motorcycles. But this car was beyond a simple fix. He tried calling for help, but there was no signal. "There's a small town about 15 miles that way," he said, pointing. "I passed it before. I can ride back and get help." Sarah looked at the motorcycle. "Can you take me with you?" Keanu hesitated. "I could, but it's not safe with your condition. Rough road, sharp turns, no backrest." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. "Please don't leave me here." He knelt beside her. "I won't. I promise. I'll stay with you tonight. Then we'll figure something out in the morning." Sarah was surprised. "But you're Keanu Reeves." He smiled. "And you're someone who needs help." They built a small camp using supplies from his bike. He made a small fire from dry branches. He kept her warm with his extra jacket and stayed up all night, just in case she needed anything. The stars above were endless and the desert felt quiet but somehow safe. At one point in the night, Sarah asked, "Why are you even here?" Keanu looked at the fire. "Sometimes I ride out here to think. No cameras, no crowds, no pressure. Just the wind and silence clears my head." "Thank you," she whispered. The next morning, as the sun came up, Sarah felt a sharp pain in her belly. She screamed. Keanu rushed over. "What's wrong?" "I think something's wrong. It hurts." He gently helped her lie back down, checked her forehead. She was burning up. "You're going into early labor," he said quietly, trying to stay calm. "We can't wait anymore." Keanu made a quick decision. He adjusted the motorcycle, tied some bags to balance the ride, then helped Sarah onto the seat in front of him. He held her securely as they rode across the rocky road, bumping and swaying. She screamed again, but held on. The town finally appeared, a small place with a gas station, diner, and an old clinic. People turned their heads as Keanu pulled up, holding the pregnant woman like a lifeline. The doctor on duty was shocked. What happened? Early labor, Keanu said. She's dehydrated and scared. Help her now. They rushed Sarah inside. Keanu stayed in the hallway pacing. Sweat dripped down his face. He wasn't acting. He was deeply worried. People whispered around him, realizing who he was, but he didn't care. After an hour, the doctor came out. She's stable. We stopped the contractions for now. Baby is still okay. But she needs rest and she has no one here. Keanu nodded. I'll stay. He paid for her medical bills in full. He booked a small motel room for her recovery. He brought her clean clothes and food every day, she asked. Why are you still helping me? He smiled. Because I can. And because someday your baby will grow up and need someone to believe in. That night, Sarah cried quietly, not because of pain, but because she hadn't felt kindness like that in years. Keanu didn't just save her life. He gave her hope. The small motel room was quiet except for the hum of the ceiling fan. Sarah lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Her belly gently rose and fell with each breath. Beside her, a small table held a tray of food, warm soup, fresh fruit, and bread. She hadn't eaten like that in weeks. She turned her head and saw him again, Keanu Reeves, sitting on the old chair near the window reading a book with a calm expression. You don't have to stay, she whispered. He looked up and gave a soft smile. I know, but I want to. Tears welled in her eyes again. Why? Why me? Keanu closed the book and leaned forward. You remind me of someone. My sister. She was strong like you. Stubborn. She used to say, never leave anyone behind, even if the world did. What happened to her? Sarah asked softly. Keanu's eyes became distant. She passed away years ago. Leukemia. She was only 30. Sarah didn't know what to say. She reached out and held his hand. I'm sorry. He nodded. Me too. But she taught me how to care, how to be present when it matters most. The next morning, Sarah woke up early. Her body still ached, but her spirit felt a little stronger. Keanu had already gone out and returned with breakfast and prenatal vitamins. The motel staff had become curious. Whispers floated around that a big movie star was staying there, but Keanu kept it low. No interviews, no cameras, no attention. He wore a cap and hoodie, blending in as much as possible. His only focus was Sarah and her unborn child. A few days passed. The doctor from the small clinic stopped by daily, impressed by Sarah's recovery. You're lucky, he told her. If that man hadn't brought you here when he did, we could have lost both of you. One evening, as the desert winds picked up and dust blew across the roads, Sarah asked a question that had been burning inside her. What do you want out of this, Keanu? He raised his eyebrows. What do you mean? You've given me food, shelter, safety. You paid my bills. You've stayed here instead of going back to your life. You must want something. Keanu looked at her kindly. I want you to be okay. That's all. Sarah didn't know how to respond. The silence between them was heavy, not uncomfortable, but full of unspoken truths. She was beginning to realize something. This man, who could have flown off in a jet or gone to a mansion, had chosen to stay grounded. He had chosen kindness. Later that night, Keanu made a call. Hey, I need a favor, he said into the phone. Yeah, it's personal. A young woman she's expecting. She has nowhere to go. He arranged for a private car to take Sarah to a better hospital in a nearby city. He told her she would be under care until the baby came. He would cover everything. At first she refused. You've done enough, she said. I can't keep taking from you. You're not taking anything, he replied. I'm giving, there's a difference. Before she left for the hospital, they sat on the bench outside the motel. The stars were out again. You should go back to your life, she said gently. Keanu looked at the sky. This is my life. Then he smiled. But I'll visit. When the car arrived, Sarah stepped in slowly. Before the door closed, she looked at him one last time and said, Thank you. You saved 2 lives, not 1. Take care of that baby, he said, giving her a wave. Sarah leaned her head back against the seat as the car drove away. For the first time in months, she felt safe. She felt seen. Meanwhile, Keanu stayed behind for one more night. He returned to the spot where he had found her, a stretch of road in the middle of nowhere. He stood there in silence, remembering the fear in her eyes, the strength in her voice, and the way she fought to stay alive for her baby. The next day, the motel owner approached him. "That girl," the woman said. "She was lost. You gave her a way back," Keanu smiled. "Sometimes all it takes is one moment." He rode off on his motorcycle again, dust rising behind him. He didn't go back to Los Angeles right away. Instead, he stopped in small towns, had coffee at local diners, and spoke with strangers who didn't even recognize him. He said hello to gas station attendants, tipped extra at motels, and helped a broken-down trucker fix his wheel. The news hadn't caught on yet. The world still didn't know what he had done, but that was about to change. 2 weeks later, a nurse from the hospital shared a story on social media. She didn't name anyone, but she told of a quiet man who paid for a young woman's care and visited without ever asking for attention. The story spread. Soon, someone recognized Keanu in a photo beside the hospital bed. It went viral. People were stunned. They had seen him in movies, saving cities, fighting villains, playing heroes. But now they saw him in real life, being something much greater, a quiet protector, a real one. Reporters reached out. Headlines exploded. Keanu Reeves saves pregnant. Woman in desert flooded news outlets, but when they asked him for a statement, he replied with just 5 words. She did the hard part. Meanwhile, Sarah was resting peacefully in the hospital room. Her baby was still weeks away, but the staff had grown fond of her. She had shared her story with a few nurses, and one of them asked gently, "Did you really not know who he was?" Sarah smiled. "Not at first, but even if I had, it wouldn't have changed what he did." Then one day a letter arrived for her. Inside it was a simple note. "Dear Sarah, you're stronger than you think. I'll be back before the baby arrives." Because she held the note close, tears in her eyes. Outside the hospital window, the sky was cloudy, but her heart was clear. Someone believed in her, and that made all the difference. The hospital room smelled like fresh linens and lavender. Sarah sat by the window, one hand resting gently on her belly, the other holding the note Keanu had sent. She had read it at least 20 times, and still, it made her eyes well up. Her baby kicked softly inside her, as if feeling her emotion. A nurse came in with a smile. "You have another visitor," she said. Sarah's heart jumped. "Is it him?" The nurse smiled wider and nodded. "Yes." Sarah stood up slowly, steadying herself as the door opened. Keanu walked in, holding a small box wrapped in soft blue paper. He looked tired but peaceful, like someone who had been through a long journey and finally arrived at the right place. "You kept your promise," Sarah whispered. "Always," he said. "How are you feeling?" "Better. The doctors say the baby's growing strong. They're watching me closely." Keanu handed her the box. She opened it slowly. Inside was a tiny onesie, hand-stitched with the words, "Little Fighter," across the front. She pressed it against her heart and cried. "I wanted to bring something special," he said quietly. Sarah looked up. "You already did." Keanu stayed for the afternoon. They talked for hours, about music, books, movies, dreams. Sarah shared her story, how her boyfriend left when he found out about the baby, how she lost her job, how she almost gave up. "I kept thinking maybe I wasn't meant to be a mother," she said. "But now, I feel like this baby saved me." Keanu listened without judgment. He didn't interrupt. When she finished, he simply said, "You're already a good mother, because you never stopped trying." The next few days passed gently. Keanu didn't just visit. He became part of the hospital's rhythm. He brought breakfast to the nurses, helped clean the garden outside, and even repaired a broken vending machine in the waiting area. The staff adored him, not because he was a celebrity, but because he was kind. News of his visits continued to spread, but he ignored the noise. He had told his team not to schedule interviews, He didn't want to be the center of attention. This wasn't about him. One evening, as the sun set in gold and orange outside the hospital window, Sarah asked him a question that had been on her mind. "What are you running from?" Keanu looked surprised. "What makes you think I'm running? You travel alone. You ride into nowhere. You help strangers and then disappear. People who are at peace don't move like that." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he answered softly, "I guess I've lost a lot in my life. People I loved. People I couldn't save. Sometimes helping others is the only way I know how to keep going." Sarah reached for his hand. "Maybe that's not running. Maybe that's healing." They sat in silence, the kind that feels warm and full, not empty. Keanu smiled gently. "Maybe you're right." A week later, Sarah went into labor. It started early in the morning, sharp pain stronger than anything she had felt before. Nurses rushed in, doctors followed. They told her it was time. Keanu had gone out that morning to get her favorite juice from the market across town. When he came back and heard the news, he dropped everything and ran. By the time he reached the delivery floor, he was out of breath. A nurse stopped him. "Are you the father?" He hesitated, then said, "No, but I'm here for her." The nurse nodded and let him wait outside the delivery room. Screams echoed down the hallway. Time moved slowly. Keanu paced the floor, his hands shaking. He didn't know why he felt so emotional. Maybe because he had seen her journey, her strength, her struggle. Maybe because this moment felt bigger than anything. Then the door opened. A nurse came out, her face glowing. "She did it," she said. "A healthy baby girl." Keanu's knees went weak. He smiled and let out a deep breath. "Can I see them?" "Soon," the nurse said. "They're just cleaning up." He sat down, closed his eyes, and whispered a quiet, "Thank you" to the sky. A few minutes later, he walked into the room. Sarah was lying on the bed, exhausted but radiant. In her arms was a tiny baby wrapped in pink. "Meet Hope," she said, looking up at him with tears in her eyes. "I named her Hope because that's what you gave me." Keanu's eyes filled with tears. He walked over slowly, looking at the baby. She had dark hair, tiny hands, and the softest breath. "She's perfect," he whispered. Sarah held the baby out. "Do you want to hold her?" His hands trembled as he took the baby into his arms. She was so small, so light, yet she carried the weight of a miracle. Hope opened her eyes for a brief moment, and Keanu felt something shift inside him. Like all the pain he had buried, all the years of wandering, had led him to this moment. "Thank you for letting me be part of this," he said. Sarah smiled. "You're more than part of it. You're her guardian angel." Keanu stayed in the hospital for 2 more days, making sure Sarah and baby Hope had everything they needed. He arranged for them to move into a safe apartment in the city, close to a women's support center. He promised to visit often. Before they left the hospital, Sarah whispered to him, "I don't know how to repay you." Keanu leaned down and kissed baby Hope's forehead. "You already have? You reminded me what life is really about." As they stepped outside, a crowd had gathered. Reporters, photographers, people holding signs saying, "Thank you, Keanu." But he didn't stop. He shielded Sarah and the baby with his body, waved kindly to the crowd, and helped them into the waiting car. As the door closed, he whispered, "You got this." The car drove off, and Keanu stood in the sunlight, watching it disappear down the road. He had been in 100 movies, played dozens of heroes. But in that moment, he had never felt more real, more alive, or more at peace. Because sometimes, saving the world doesn't happen on screen. Sometimes, it happens on a quiet road, in the middle of nowhere, between 2 strangers who choose kindness. 3 weeks later, the world still buzzed with the story. Newspapers, websites, TV shows, all told the tale of how Keanu Reeves had saved a pregnant woman stranded in the desert and helped deliver her baby girl. But while headlines exploded, Keanu stayed quiet. He didn't give interviews. He didn't post on social media. He didn't want fame for being decent. Instead, he focused on Sarah and baby Hope. Every 2 days, he visited the small apartment he had arranged for them. It wasn't big, but it was safe and warm. Sarah had her own bedroom, a crib for baby Hope, and a little kitchen where she made simple meals. He had filled the fridge with groceries and hired a nurse to check in twice a week. On one visit, he brought a stroller, baby clothes, and a set of storybooks. Sarah opened the front door with a tired smile. "You spoil her," she said, laughing. Gently, Keanu smiled. "She deserves it." Baby Hope was in her crib, cooing softly, her little arms waving in the air. She had started recognizing faces, and when she saw Keanu, she made a sound that was half giggle, half squeal. "I think she likes you more than she likes me," Sarah joked. Keanu walked over, picked up Hope carefully, and held her against his chest. "She knows love when she sees it." They sat together on the couch. Sarah sipped tea while Keanu gently rocked Hope in his arms. Outside, the sky turned orange as the sun began to set. "I got a call today," Sarah said quietly. "A friend of my aunt runs a bookstore. She offered me a job." Keanu's eyes lit up. "That's amazing. Are you going to take it?" "I think so. It's part-time, so I can be with Hope most of the day." He smiled. "You're doing it. Building a life." She looked at him, her voice soft. "You helped me start over. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to," he replied. "Just live. Just be happy." But life has its own way of testing people. And kindness, no matter how strong, is not a shield from struggle. 3 days later, a tabloid posted an article with private details. Photos of Sarah, baby Hope, and even their apartment building. Someone had leaked their location. Sarah panicked. Strangers showed up outside the apartment taking pictures, knocking on doors. One even tried to sneak into the building. Keanu got a call from the nurse that evening. Within an hour, he was there. He found Sarah holding Hope tightly, the lights off, the curtains closed. "I'm scared," she whispered. Keanu stood by the window, jaw tight. "You don't have to be." He made one phone call. By midnight, Sarah and baby Hope were moved to a secure home in a quiet part of town. No cameras, no reporters, no attention. Keanu had friends in the right places, people who understood the value of privacy and protection. The next morning, Keanu showed up at the new place with a smile. "Welcome home." Sarah looked around the house. Bright rooms, clean furniture, a small garden in the back. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "And safe," he added. Days passed quietly. Sarah started her job at the bookstore. The owner, a kind woman named Mrs. Nelson, knew the story, but didn't treat Sarah like a victim. She trained her with patience, let her bring Hope to work in a small carrier, and even gave her a key to the staff break room for feeding time. Sarah loved the smell of books, the sound of the doorbell when customers walked in, and the simple joy of doing something meaningful again. Keanu kept visiting. He brought lunch, helped fix a leaky faucet, and even spent time reading stories to baby Hope. He was becoming part of their routine, part of their family. One evening, while Hope slept in her crib, Sarah and Keanu sat in the small backyard garden, watching the stars. "I've been thinking," she said. "About what?" "About what would have happened if you hadn't stopped that day." Keanu was quiet for a moment. "Don't think about that. I can't help it. I was so close to giving up." "But you didn't," he said. "That's what matters." She looked at him, her voice trembling. "You saved me. But more than that, you believed in me." He smiled gently. "You just needed someone to remind you who you are." They sat in silence, listening to the wind move through the trees. But far away, trouble was brewing again. A reporter who had chased the story from the beginning had found something new, a rumor, a whisper, a photo from years ago, Sarah and her ex-boyfriend standing in front of a courthouse. He began digging deeper, and what he found would soon shake everything. A court document, a sealed record, a name connected to an old case. The next morning it hit the headlines. Woman saved by Keanu Reeves once charged with theft. The article painted her past in the worst light possible. It talked about a stolen check from a former employer, a court case, probation. The article didn't mention the details, that the employer had later dropped charges, that Sarah had paid every cent back, that she had been 19, broke and desperate. The internet didn't care. Comment sections exploded. He helped a criminal? How could he be so blind? This changes everything. Sarah saw the article on her break at work. Her hands trembled. Her heart raced. Mrs. Nelson gently took the baby from her arms and whispered, "Go home. I'll cover your shift." By the time Keanu arrived at the house that evening, Sarah was packing. "I can't stay," she said. "Not after this." Keanu stood in the doorway, watching her fold baby clothes into a bag. "Sarah, stop. They're right," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I messed up my life. I don't deserve this second chance." He walked over and gently took the clothes from her hands. "You made a mistake. One mistake. But you didn't quit. You turned your life around. That's what matters." She fell to her knees, crying. "But everyone's watching now, judging, hating." Keanu knelt beside her. "Then let them. Their noise doesn't define you. Your heart does." Outside, reporters were already trying to find the new address. A few even knocked on neighbors' doors. But inside that home, something stronger than gossip was growing. A bond. A truth. A quiet kind of love. The internet was still boiling. Blogs, podcasts, and late-night shows picked up the rumor. The headline made people curious, and curiosity turned into judgment. They didn't ask for context. They didn't care about what Sarah had survived. They just clicked, commented, and shared. But inside the small home Keanu had found for her, Sarah sat on the floor with her baby in her arms and tears on her cheeks. Keanu sat next to her. "Calm but serious, Sarah," he said gently. "Look at me." She did, but barely. Her face was pale, her eyes tired. "You have to stop blaming yourself. They think I'm a fraud," she whispered. "They think I used you. You didn't. But they're right. I did make a mistake. I stole that check. I was desperate." "You were 19, Keanu said. "And you paid it back. The charges were dropped. You didn't hide it. You didn't lie. You grew up. You changed. That's what people don't see. They won't." "Forgive me. They don't need to," he said. "You already forgave yourself. That's what matters." Baby hope stirred in her arms. Sarah looked down at her daughter, at the small hand wrapped around her finger. "I don't want her to grow up with shame." "She won't," Keanu said. "She'll grow up with strength." The next day, Sarah didn't hide. She walked to the bookstore with hope in her carrier. She held her head high. Some people stared, some whispered, but some smiled. Genuine smiles. Because not everyone believes the worst. Mrs. Nelson hugged her as she came in. "You don't have to be perfect to be worth something," she said softly. Keanu knew the storm wouldn't go away unless someone told the truth. So he agreed to one interview. Just one. He sat across from a respected journalist. Not a gossip. Chaser, but someone who valued stories with heart. "Why did you help her?" the interviewer asked. Keanu looked into the camera and answered, "Because no one else did. Because she was alone. Because she was trying. And because the world doesn't need more judgment. It needs more people who care." "Did you know about her past?" "Yes. She told me herself. And I told her it didn't matter. Because I saw who she is now, not who she was then." The interview aired that night, and something surprising happened. The comments began to change. People, who had once called Sarah a liar, now wrote, "We all make mistakes." Others shared their own stories, of second chances, of rebuilding, of shame turned into strength. Sarah sat in her living room, holding hope, watching the screen as Keanu spoke. He didn't defend her with loud words. He defended her with truth, and slowly the noise faded, but not everyone was ready to move on. One afternoon, Sarah was closing up the bookstore when a man walked in. Her heart froze. It was Tyler, her ex, the one who had walked out when she told him she was pregnant. He looked rough, thinner, older, nervous. "Hey," he said. "Long time." She stood still. "What do you want?" "I saw the news," he said. "About you. And the baby." She stepped back. "You didn't care before, don't pretend now." "I didn't know what to do back then," he said. "I panicked." "You left," she said sharply. "I begged you to stay. I cried. I had no money, no family, and you disappeared." Looked at the floor. "I was a coward. And now?" she asked, voice steady. "I want to see her. I want to be in her life." She stared at him. Her hands shook, but her voice was calm. "No, not now. Not yet. But I'm her father." "You were never a father," she said, holding back tears. "You were a shadow. And now she has someone better." As if on cue, the bookstore door opened. Keanu walked in. He saw Tyler and immediately understood. "Everything okay?" he asked, stepping beside Sarah. She nodded. "Yes, he was just leaving." Tyler looked between them. "So that's how it is." "Yes," Sarah said, holding her head high. "This is how it is." Tyler left without another word. Sarah collapsed into a chair. Keanu brought her water and stayed quiet until she spoke. "I didn't expect that." "You handled it perfectly," he said. "I thought I'd break down." "You didn't." "I was scared. But you stood your ground." She looked at him. "You give me strength." "No," he said. "You already had it. I just reminded you." That evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the walls with gold, Keanu picked up baby Hope and whispered to her, "Your mama is the strongest person I know." Hope gurgled in response, and Keanu smiled. That night, Sarah sat in her room writing a letter she would one day give to Hope. "Dear Hope, the world can be cruel, but it can also be kind. You were born from pain, but you are surrounded by love. I was scared to be your mother, but now I'm proud. You were the light I didn't know I needed. And there was one man, one soul, who helped bring you safely into this world. He showed me what real love looks like. Quiet, patient, strong. When you grow up, I'll tell you everything. But for now, just know this. You were born with hope, and you'll grow with it too." She folded the letter and placed it in a small box beside the note Keanu had written to her weeks ago. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees. Inside, a new life was taking shape. Not perfect, not easy, but real.